Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something we all deal with, our memory. We're going to dive into why we forget things, how our brains actually hold on to information, and most importantly, how you can train your brain to get way better at it. Look, this isn't about having a good or bad memory. It's a skill. And like any skill, you can improve it. So, let's get started.
You know that feeling, right? You meet someone, they say their name, and 30 seconds later, it's just gone. You're standing there, smiling, trying to recall a name that has completely vanished. It's so frustrating.
Or what about this classic? You pull an all-nighter for a big test, you cram every possible fact into your head, you even do well on the exam. But a week later, poof, it's like it was never there. It feels like such a waste, doesn't it?
Well, here's the good news. If you've experienced this, you're totally normal. Forgetting isn't a bug in our system, it's actually a feature of how our brains work. But here's the exciting part. What if you could learn to work with your brain's system to make it way more reliable? Well, you can, and that's exactly what we're here to do.
Okay, so first things first, we've got to understand the basics. The best way to think about your memory is like a giant, kind of messy filing system. For any piece of information to actually stick, it has to go through a very specific process.
It really all comes down to three key stages. First up is encoding. That's your brain taking in what you see and hear and turning it into a language it understands. Next is storage, which is, filing that information away for later. And finally, you have retrieval. That's pulling the file back out when you need it. Now here's the catch. If there's a breakdown at any of those three stages, that memory is as good as gone.
Let's trace the journey of a memory. It all starts as sensory memory, just a flash, less than a second long. If you pay attention to it, it gets promoted to your short-term memory. Think of this like your brain's countertop. You can only hold a few things on it at a time and only for about 30 seconds before they fall off. But if that information is important enough, it makes the leap to long-term memory, the brain's massive permanent archive.
So what's the secret password that gets information from that temporary countertop into the permanent archive? It's all about processing. It's about how much attention you pay. It's not enough to just passively hear something. You have to actively wrestle with it, engage with it, and make it meaningful.
And this is where the idea of levels of processing comes in. Let's take the word hat. Shallow processing is just noticing the surface stuff. Okay, it has 3 letters, it rhymes with cat, but deep processing, that's where the magic happens. You imagine wearing a hat, you think about what it feels like, what color it is, where you'd wear it, you connect it to your world. That's the stuff that makes memory stick.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but we know it doesn't always work that smoothly. Our memories fail us all the time. So let's talk about the roadblocks. What's actually going wrong?
To figure this out, we have to go way back to the 1880s. There was this psychologist, Hermann Ebbinghaus, who decided to be his own guinea pig. He spent ages memorizing thousands of nonsense syllables, just random combinations of letters, and then he meticulously tracked how quickly he forgot them. What he discovered was actually pretty shocking.
And what he found is what we now call the forgetting curve. And honestly, it's kind of terrifying. After just 20 minutes, bam! You can lose about 40% of what you just learned. After an hour, over half of it is gone. And by the next day, you might be lucky to remember a third of it. This curve is the reason cramming for a test is a terrible long-term strategy. But don't worry, it also holds the secret to defeating it. We'll get to that.
Another huge problem is something called interference. This is basically when your brain's wires get crossed. Proactive interference is when your old memories mess with the new ones, like trying to remember your new password, but your brain keeps spitting out your old one. Retroactive interference is the opposite. Learning that new password makes you completely forget the old one.
And sometimes, it's even simpler than that. Sometimes memories just fade away. Think of a memory like a path in the woods. The more you walk it, the clearer it gets. But if you stop using it, the path slowly gets overgrown until it disappears. It really does boil down to that classic saying, use it or lose it.
Okay, enough doom and gloom about forgetting. We've seen the problems, now let's talk about how to fight back. The great news is that all the best memory techniques are really built on just 4 simple, powerful principles.
First, process for meaning. Don't just mindlessly repeat things, really try to understand them. Second, practice retrieval. This is huge. Quizzing yourself is way more powerful than just rereading your notes. Third, use meta-memory. That just means thinking about your own thinking. Plan how you're going to learn something. And finally, the big one, distribute your practice. Spacing out your study sessions is the absolute best way to crush that forgetting curve we talked about.
No more cramming.
So with those principles in our back pocket, let's get to the fun stuff. Let's open up the toolkit and look at some practical techniques. They're called mnemonics that you can start using right away. So what are mnemonics? They're basically cheat codes for your brain. They're little mental tricks and strategies that help you encode information in a way that's easier to find later. They turn boring data into something memorable. Let's start with a really old one, used by ancient Greek orators. It's called the method of loci, or memory palace. Say you need to remember a grocery list. You'd imagine walking through your house and placing the items in crazy ways. Picture eggs smashed all over your couch, milk flooding the bathroom. The crazier the image, the better. Then, to remember the list, you just take a mental walk through your house and see all the items.
Okay, tool number 2 is the keyword method. This one is an absolute game changer for learning new vocabulary, whether it's for a different language or you just want to sound smarter. Let's take the word scowl. How would you remember that it means an angry expression?
Well, you listen to the word scowl. What does it kind of sound like? Owl, right? So now, you create a ridiculous mental image that connects the two. Picture a grumpy, angry owl with its feathers all ruffled, giving you a mean stare. That weird image links the sound of the word to its meaning, and it's almost impossible to forget.
All right, next up is a technique you probably use without even realizing it. It's called chunking. I want you to try and memorize this number, 19391945. Kind of hard, right? Our brains just aren't wired to remember long strings of random information like that.
But watch what happens when we group or chunk those numbers. Suddenly you see 1939 and 1945. Oh, the beginning and end years of World War II. Instantly, 8 random digits just became one single, meaningful idea. That is the incredible power of chunking.
And finally, we have a tool you've definitely used since you were a kid, the first letter technique. Trying to remember all the colors of the rainbow in order, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, is a pain. But remembering a single name, VIBGYR, so much easier. It organizes everything and gives you a simple trigger to pull out all the details.
So, when it all comes down to it, here's the biggest takeaway. A powerful memory is not some magical gift that a few lucky people are just born with. It's a muscle. It is a skill. And just like any skill, it's something you can practice and build and get better at. So the only question left is, how are you going to start training yours?